I just want to talk to you for a moment about Let the Great World Spin, which won the National Book Award and won the Impact as well, didn't it? So congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
But also there was a much more serious sort of effect, that book had after the Sandy Hook massacre. The pupils of the school used that book to sort of help heal themselves to a certain extent.
Well, I had the most incredible experience when a teacher, Lee Keelock, who's a high school teacher up in Sandy Hook, wrote to me and said he wanted to use Let the Great World Spin for the students as a book where they could navigate their grief. Whether or not they could heal from it or not is another question altogether, and whether healing is even the correct word. I've used it, but whether it's the correct word to use in relation to literature is also a further question. But it was beautiful in the sense that I went from New York up to Connecticut, walked into the classroom with these kids who had lost brothers and sisters, who had babysat for these children who'd been horrendously shot, murdered, massacred, and they were there and they were trying to make sense of their own lives, and they make sense of their lives through poetry, through literature, and the book that they'd used then was Let the Great World Spin, and that made me believe in literature in the way that I really have wanted to believe in literature since I was like 15 years old, that it could be used not only as a form of entertainment, not only as a form of engaging with ideas about human consciousness and nature and all of these things, but also as something that can help people to navigate their own experience outside of the immediate vicinity of the book itself.
Can I ask your take on gun control in America?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, yeah, control them all. I mean, I would like to get a giant vat somehow, like write a magic realist story about somehow being able to get some giant vat where you could like throw all these like crazy weapons in and melt them all together and make necklaces for everybody that said something altogether different. I mean, I use the image in Transatlantic where Frederick Douglass melts down these chains, slave chains, and he makes barbells out of them. There are certain ways that we can take these things that are images of destruction, images of violence, and we can reconstitute them. It just takes a sort of an extraordinary leap of the imagination.
Your sixth novel, Transatlantic, I mean, it skips between times, but also it's over and back across the Atlantic. So, I mean, I know that you come back to Dublin quite regularly, but have you been to Galway very much? I mean,
no, I mean, part of this novel takes place in Galway because Alcock and Brown took the flight from Newfoundland and landed in Clifton in 1919 after 17 hours in an open cockpit plane, which is really incredible because, if you think about it, nowadays we go across from New York to Dublin, it's what, 5-6 hours? Complained that the chicken's cold, there they were, they had little bottles, little flasks of whiskey, electrical wires in their suits to heat their suits, and the electrical wires actually went out, and they were going through snow, through fog, between layers of clouds, without a gyroscope. A most incredible journey, kind of like at that stage like landing a man on the moon, because nobody had done any non-stop transatlantic flight. And so when they ditched in the bog in Galway, it was quite an occasion.
I mean, this is your first book about Ireland in a few books actually. So, were you consciously not writing about Ireland previously, or?
It's a good question because I'm not sure how conscious it was. It was conscious when I got to the place where I decided, okay, this next novel is about 9/11, for instance, like Let the Great World Spin, and so it's not really going to go to Ireland. And the one prior to that, Zoli, was definitely not going to really take place in Ireland at all. About a Slovakian gypsy poet, and before that, Dancer, which is a fictionalization of the life of Rudolf Nureyev. But see, the thing about it is, I still think that I'm writing novels, even if Ireland is not even mentioned, or if there are no Irish characters there, because it's a way of saying that this country has the desire, the ability, and the capability of looking outwards instead of constantly looking inwards. We've tended to think of Irish novels, I don't know if you'll agree on this, but Irish novels, we look at ourselves, forge in the smithy of our soul, the uncreated conscience of our race, as Joyce said. But to look outwards, and to be part of another culture is just as provocative a statement about Irishness as anything else. So if you have an Irish writer going to, say, Argentina, as Colum McCann did, or many of our great detective writers now are actually going abroad and going into different spaces, it doesn't negate the fact that they're writing Irish novels.
Just as a writer, as a novelist, I mean, do you find things like giving readings and doing book tours distracting, or do you enjoy it?
It does get exhausting after a while, but Jesus Christ, don't complain. I hate when writers complain about this stuff. It drives me nuts, you know, like, oh, woe is me. I have to go into another room where 200 people have come because they've read my book. How good is that, you know? It's, you know, so it is a privilege to do it, but at a certain stage, you do have to get quiet again.
Oh, what's coming next?
Jeez, I wish I knew. Can you tell me? I mean, seriously, and like, if you have, let's go for a pint again. Yeah. And no, I have a few ideas. They're whirling around, but I'm in that sort of moment where, like, the glass is filling back up again. You know, and because I was exhausted and sort of terrified, thinking I can't do it again. Jet lagged, but it can be so for like 6 months or a year, and then you do get terrified. I can't do this anymore. But then ideas start to come, and I have a few little bits and pieces hanging around, and I'm going to get away at the end of this summer and start working them hopefully working them into something malleable again.
Okay, well, I look forward to seeing what's next.
Thank you.
For talking to us.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Thanks.